Okay, now I'm recording, just so you know. So if you do make any comments or questions, they will be recorded. The community level instrument is staged by the SPF process. It follows the SPF model according to the needs assessment, capacity building, strategic planning, implementation, evaluation, and then cultural competence. It asks questions around each of those, and the amount of questions that it asks depends on what stage we're in. Since we've completed the needs assessment and working on capacity building and finishing up the strategic planning, those are the main questions that you're going to be asked about as we go through the community level instrument. It also sets up the second part of the community level instrument called the CLI Part 2 that reports on the number of people that you serve and the prevention that you do during the implementation. We're going to actually have a separate training on setting up the CLI Part 2 and also how to fill in the CLI Part 2 at another time. Sometime early September is what we're aiming for. Okay, just so you know, as we go into it, there is some upcoming due dates. There's going to be a conference call. We've done the conference. We're going to do some conference calls in August and September with you. We're going to set up appointments and be able to talk with you one-on-one as problems arise, and be able to make sure that there aren't any problems that we can't resolve. Also, we want to have the CLI Part 1 completed by September 15th so that we can report that to the feds before the end of the fiscal year. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Emily, and she's going to go over the CLI. And so, Emily, if you could introduce yourself while I switch the screen over.
Hi, I'm Emily Grant. Like Eric said, I have been working on the CLI with Oregon for the past 3 years, so I'm pretty well versed in it, and I hope that I'll be able to answer all of your questions. Let's see. Okay. Can we get Yolanda's screen up?
I just made her presenter, so.
Okay, there we go. All right, so hopefully everyone's had a chance to go to the PMRTS website. Eric had said to open it in Firefox, and we found that that browser has the least amount of difficulties. Internet Explorer also works, but depending on which version you have, sometimes there's a few glitches. So we found that Firefox works all the time. Google Chrome does not work at all. So if you're having problems with logging in or viewing part of the site, be sure to check your browser. Also, the way that the CLI works is questions come in pop-up style windows. So you need to disable your pop-up blocker in order to utilize the CLI features. Okay, so Yolanda, if you could go ahead and log in. So with your passwords, they are case sensitive, and I do not have access to them. WISAC doesn't have access. So be sure to write that down somewhere where you will remember it. And if something happens and you cannot access your password, then you'll need to call tech support, and they'll be able to reset it for you. And always you can send me an email or call me, and I can help you with that process as well. Okay, so once you're logged in, you'll go to the tab that says Data Submissions, and when you put your cursor there, it'll drop down and you'll see an MRT link that will take you to the CLI site. So Yolanda, could you go to Data Submission? I guess, you know, do I have control of the keyboard? Then I can do this, and I don't have to ask Yolanda to.
You should have control, Emily. I gave it to you.
I do have it. Okay. All right, so once you're in the MRT, you'll want to click on Evaluation. You can do that either from this menu or this top menu. you'll see that you have options for CLI 1 and CLI Part 2, and there's also a PLI. We're not going to get into that right now. You might not ever have to do any of that. And also we'll do another training for you for the CLI Part 2 because we don't want to overwhelm you with too much today. So we'll click on CLI Part 1. Notice up here there is a training video that you can click on. It's a short, maybe 2 or 3 minute video if I recall. They can serve as a useful reminder. It kind of shows you like how to click on the buttons, how to go back, and sort of just functional things about filling out the CLI. So the first thing that you'll do is select the reporting period. Since this is your first time reporting, the default that they have in there is 2009. I've talked to the people at tech support and they will be changing that to say 2014. But go ahead and click on that. And if you can be following along with me, then you'll get a great deal of your CLI filled out while we're on the phone. So once you have the correct reporting period in there, click View and Update Surveys. Okay, and then you see your menu below. Yours will not have all these completed and date modified because this is the first time that you're logging in. But the CLI is open for the entire reporting period. So anytime you want to go in and update information, it's available to you, and you can change anything clear until the point when you submit it at the end of the reporting period. And I always encourage people to be working on your CLI and put in information on a regular basis so that at the end of the reporting period, you're not stuck with several hours worth of work. So the first one is the administrative survey. With some of the surveys, you might need some input from supervisors or other people. So as we go through this, take note maybe on a separate sheet of paper that says which questions you need to go back to, because in order to progress through the CLI, you must enter an answer in there to go to the next question. But you can always change it at any time. So the first section asks about what type of organization you are. So are you a community coalition, non-youth focused, community-based service advocacy organization, college, university, law enforcement, government agency, I think is going to be a popular choice here. And if you feel that none of these fit you, there is another category, but I'd encourage you to ask either myself or Eric because you might fit into one of these categories that are already there. This question asks if you're partnering with a community coalition, and they mean a formal partnership with like a memorandum of understanding, a particular agreement. And this is also a baseline measure. So this is asking, what are you doing from this point until September? So maybe you have plans in the future to do some things, but we want to know just right now. And it's okay if you don't, because there's always room to grow. Okay, so if you had said yes there, it's going to ask you to describe the lead agency for the community coalition. If you said no, it's going to skip you ahead. So each time you take the survey, you might see different questions because of the skip pattern. And likewise, each person or each community that completes the survey, they're all going to be at different places. So everyone will be seeing a little bit different of a survey each time. Okay, and then this section asks about structural and functional dimensions, like do you have a vision and focus? Is there collaborative leadership? And you just answer this to the best of your ability. And each time that you fill out the CLI, you're going to have a chance to update this and show the progress that you've made in the last year. So it asks when the Community Coalition was established. Some of the answers you'll see have a don't know response available. And especially for the first reporting period, it's okay if there are some things that you don't know about. They always do want to have as much information put in as possible. So after this first reporting period, we'd hope that you do put in an answer for all of these. So this question here, number 36, says indicate the types of organizations or individuals that participate in the Community Coalition. And we were talking yesterday. Yes.
Emily, we do have a question.
Yes.
Robin Saul asks, how do we obtain a username or password for the PMRTS website?
Okay. A little while back, I'd say maybe 2 weeks ago, when we initialized the subrecipients, everyone should have got a email from a do not reply at kitsolutions.net email that gives a password and a username. If you don't have that email, you can call the tech support and tell them which county you're with, tell them you're with the North Dakota SPF SIG, and they'll be able to set you up. I'm going to write that number in the chat so everyone can see it in case you do need help with that. I always remember it as the numbers, or as the letters. Oh, this went to organizers and panelists only. So Eric, my chat went to organizers and panelists only. How do I send that to everyone? The number is 1-888-DITIC for you. Okay, there it's everyone. But yeah, so that's the number to tech support. They're very helpful, and they will be able to help you set your password back up if you do not have it. Okay, so back to this question 36 here. It asks about the types of organizations or individuals that participate in the coalition. And we recognize that sometimes people hold multiple offices or wear multiple hats. You know, we could have one person that is part of the school, they maybe work for the school district, and they're involved in law enforcement and a state department, and they're also a parent. And so we don't want to do duplicate entries, but sometimes people are talking on behalf of several different organizations that they might represent. But in order to double count them, they have to be coming to your coalition as the voice from these different groups, not that they just happen to be part of them, if that makes sense. This next question asks about funding. And this asks about cultural competency. Perhaps you already have something in place. If not, maybe it's something that you're going to be working on in the future. And then that'll be the end of the administrative survey. So on to needs and resource assessment. And once you go through and you see that last screen that says, thank you, it's completed, then on your drop-down list of all the different surveys, you'll see a completed and the date that you completed it on there as well. So this question asks if you've worked on any aspect of the needs and resource assessment, and I believe that all of you have. It asks if you've looked at organizational needs. So this might be, do you need new staff? Do you have the funding that you need? Do you need a new computer? You know, those types of things to make sure that your organization is ready to do the SPF SIG. Okay, and it's asked about which things that you assessed during the reporting period. A lot of you will have looked at all of these, some maybe half of them. Just kind of depends on what you guys have looked at. It'll ask if you've completed it. So for some, you may be ongoing. And then we move on to asking if you've looked at the community needs. And likely everyone's going to be saying yes to this question. So because we gave you the community needs assessment workbook, a lot of these are going to look the same. Perhaps some of you may have went above and beyond and looked at a couple of different things. But you'll just click here, which needs and resources were assessed. And then on 48, it asks you about what type of data was used and where it came from. If it came from the epidemiological outcomes work group from the state. So I talked with Eric, and he gave me a list of which data was provided in partnership with the EOW. So if you're clicking along here with me, I can tell you which ones those are. Oops, and I thought I had it pulled up here.
And Emily, we will send an email with this so that they will
Okay.
and put it onto the wiki so that they can access it later as well.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that because there are quite a few of them here. So we'll just make a note that on number 48 we'll be sending you out the answers basically. If you are following along, you will need to put in answers for each of those. So if you just want to do your best guess right now so you can move along, then you can change them later. So I'll ask if you've identified consumption patterns. That's probably a yes. You guys are looking at underage use of alcohol and binge drinking. The SPF SIG is sometimes used for other things, so you'll see things like tobacco and illegal drugs and things that might not apply to you, but this is just an overall tool for everyone to use. Have you identified the consequences? That should be something that we've talked about. Here we've selected crime, independence, or abuse. Have you identified the specific populations that you're going to be working with? So here, if you read in this paragraph, it's saying to select the most general category that everyone will fall into. You don't have to select each one. So if you're going to be working with people under the age of 21 of all races, then you can just select under 21. You don't have to do African American, Asian, Hispanic, etc. And here we selected all the age categories, basically under 21, 18 to 25, and then basically above for the adult binge drinking. Okay, so depending on what you put in before as your consumption patterns and consequences, it'll ask you for which groups are you going to be working on these issues. And so you go through and you check, for under 21, it's underage use of alcohol, binge, crime, and dependence and abuse. For the people that are over 21, then we're not looking at underage for them, so that isn't checked. Have you identified specific intervening variables? And so again, some people might have different things here. With Yolanda, these are the intervening variables that they have selected to work on.
Some of these may not match exactly word for word with some of the wording that we have in the needs assessment. They should be really close. But if you have any questions exactly, feel free to give us give Emily or I a call, and we'll be happy to talk you through on that question.
Absolutely. So here, this is a similar question to the one we saw previously. It wants to know for which intervening variables and which consumption patterns are you going to be working. So this is kind of how you guys are planning on doing your SPF SIG. So you'll just go for each one of them and check whether or not it's going for that consumption pattern or not. Also notice here in the corner there's a progress bar which tells you how many pages there are and how close you are to being finished. If you are in the middle of completing your survey and you have to stop and go do something else, it will save it for you.
This would be a good chance potentially to see if anyone has any questions, or if you'd like to be able to comment, please raise your hand and I'll be happy to unmute you and you can ask it to us directly. I also posted Emily's phone number in the chat so that you can call her. So it is her cell phone and work phone together, and so she is available that way, and I will also make sure that my phone number is also posted.
Yes, and I'm available anytime. I'm more than happy to answer questions. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, I guess I'll move on.
There is a question.
Oh, okay.
Tanya from Central Valley asks, we have an error on the page and cannot see any of the questions you're showing. What should we try?
What does the error say?
Let me unmute Tanya, and she can talk directly to us.
Okay.
Tanya, can you hear us? Tanya, you are unmuted if you do have a mic. It doesn't look like she may have a mic that's working. So,
Okay. Well, without knowing what the error message says, it's kind of hard for me to help, but
there is another question from Wanda. She says, what are the time frames for this report?
so this would be, the CLI 1 is completed on an annual basis. So it's basically from September to September. So it's everything that you've done from the beginning of your grant to September of this year.
Hi, this is Laura, and can everyone hear me? I'm on.
Yes.
I just want to mention too that we are planning and we're working on putting together a calendar document where it has all the deadlines of, with the contracts, but also the deadlines of these reporting periods. So it's like just a one-stop shop of looking at that.
All right. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, so we had talked about that at the previous meeting, and I know that we've been working together to make sure that we had all those nailed down. Okay, I think that we're ready to move on then.
Okay. So the next section talks about capacity building, and capacity building is one of those things that's likely going to be continuing throughout the life of the grant. So often, most communities will continually say each time that they fill out a CLI that yes, they did work on some aspect of capacity building during the reporting period.
Just a second. Tanya let us know that Laura's audio was a little low, and so I wanted to repeat what Laura had said. They said that they're working on putting up a calendar and timeline for all the different reporting requirements and deadlines and everything, not just reporting, but everything for the grant. And they're working on putting that up, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's going to go up on the wiki.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it is going to be going up on the wiki. All right, Laura, Emily, I think we're ready to go on.
All right. Also, I wanted to point out here at the beginning of each subform, it gives kind of a helpful idea of who you might want to include in this, or if you have some questions about what you have done, these are some helpful people that might have the answers for you. Also, because you can always go back and change your answers if you're not quite sure. If you've done capacity building or evaluation or any of these surveys, you can always say, yes, you did, which will open it up so you can see the questions that are inside. If you just say no, you'll go to the end of the survey. But if you get in there and you start going through all the questions and you say, I really haven't done any of this reporting period, then you can always go back and change it to no. Okay, so this asks if you've done anything to improve organizational resources.
Okay, we do have one other question. Kobe has asked, is this still in evaluation on MRT? I'm not certain what exactly she's speaking to. There is, this is part of the evaluation. Yes, it's also part of the federal reporting. Kobe?
So I wonder if he's asking how we got here, maybe. Through the MRT evaluation site. We're still in there.
She says she's trying to follow along with the slides.
Okay, so these are slides. This is the actual reporting tool. If you are having trouble getting here, you'll go into the MRT, and after you log in, if you said you're already under evaluation. So in evaluation, it's the CLI 1. You click on CLI 1, select your reporting period, which incorrectly states 2009, but that's your only option today. You click View and Update Surveys. Then you'll see this drop-down list of each of the surveys in the CLI, and we're currently on the capacity building survey. I hope that helps. Specifically, we are on page 3 of the capacity building survey. Okay, and this says, what are the activities that you did during this reporting period, so up until September? What have you done? So hired staff, trained staff, those are going to be really common things since this is your first year. Okay, the next question asks about raising community awareness. And they'll ask, which substance abuse problems are you raising awareness on? It'll be individual to each community. And what are your target audiences? Who are you presenting this awareness-raising information to? So you'll just think back on this last year and who all you have involved.
Okay, Tanya just did have one question. She said that she completed the admin survey, but all the questions, and when she went through it, all the questions were answered, but it's showing that it's incomplete. I think that's specifically something that we can go over and walk through with you directly at some point, but it does keep track of incompletes, and we can make sure that if you do have any problems like that, please let us know. Drop us an email or call us, and we can address it directly.
Yes, and sometimes. And I'm not exactly sure why. It might be a browser issue. For some people, as soon as you click that you finished it, it immediately will update on your screen that shows all the surveys as complete. For some other people, it says incomplete for a little while, and they found that if they just wait, or if they log out and log back in, it'll say complete. The system does save the information. But always make sure that you went to that last screen that says that the survey is complete. It doesn't have any questions in it, and then you click the Done button. And if you're not sure if you did that, you can click on the administrative survey link on that first page, and it'll take you to the last page that you completed. And then you'd have an opportunity to click that Done button if you hadn't already.
Roxanne notes, just like you did, that sometimes it takes a page refresh and then it will show that it was complete.
And this asks if you've identified any key stakeholders and partners to participate in your intervention activities. So see, this is if you say no, you're going to skip past some of these questions. If yes, it's going to ask you who they are. So here you just select all the organizations that you've partnered with. You also have a space for other if you don't feel like whoever you partner with doesn't fit into one of the previous categories. So this is asked about sustainability, working on how are you going to continue these efforts after the SPF SIG funding ends? Since you guys are just starting, perhaps you might not have got to this yet, and you will in the future. And if you already have, you select yes, and it's going to ask you some more questions about that. And here's that screen I was talking about that says that this survey is completed. Thank you for taking the survey. After you see this screen and you hit close, you should be good. It just might not show it immediately on your menu. Okay, the next one is strategic planning. I understand that you guys are currently working on this one. Okay, so it says, have you worked on any aspect during this reporting period? You'd say yes.
There was another question. It says, is there any way to print hard copies of the surveys?
Unfortunately, there is not. In the training manual that was sent out yesterday, it does have a comprehensive question-by-question guide, which is pretty helpful if you get hung up on something, but it is also a pretty thick document. That's kind of the best that we can do, but the question-by-question guide does list out the question and also the possible answers, and it does give kind of instructions on what they're looking for as well. So that's kind of the closest that I have.
Okay, and there is no way of printing out the question-by-question answers as well as they go through it after they're done, that they answered?
No, there is not, unfortunately.
Okay.
If it was really important to capture that, I'd say like screenshots would be your best bet, but that would be really time-consuming.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, as if you've completed your strategic plan by September when this is due, some of you might be saying yes, and others, it's okay if you haven't. And see, it has two options here for no, it has not been completed yet, and it was completed in an earlier reporting period, which might be something that you'd be using for next year.
Okay, I think you just answered this, but another question has asked, since we're due to finish our strategic plan by the end of August, should we wait to complete this until then, or can we do it today at the level we are at and call it good enough until next year?
So what you would want to do is today go through it to where you are today, and then right before you go to submit it in September, go and update it. You know, maybe there's a few things that you can add. But you definitely want it to have it be as accurate as possible up to the end of the reporting period in September. Here you say who worked on the strategic plan with you. And what type of things does your strategic plan include? It also has an other category.
Okay, just the moment, we have two questions. The manual that was just sent out, what does it cover? So we can talk about that in a second, but the other question is the deadline for submission of the CLI is September 15th, and the answer to that is yes, it is. But you're trying to get as much as you can. The reason we've chosen September 15th is because we want to be able to complete a review of all your submissions by the end of September.
Right, and so maybe I should talk about that. What happens when you submit your CLI is it goes to me, and then I go through and read all of your answers, and I can send it back for revisions if I have questions about anything or if anything looks inconsistent or it needs to be changed in some way. And so then I'll send it back to you. You go and make those changes, send it back to me. I'll check it one final time and make sure it's perfect, and then send it into the feds. So that process takes a little while, the going back and forth and making changes. So that's why we have the 15th deadline, so we can send it in by the end of September. For the CLI training manual that was sent out, that's a comprehensive reference on both the CLI 1 and the CLI 2. It starts off with a sort of quick start guide that goes over how to log in, which buttons to click on to get into the CLI, to just get you going. I say it's kind of more like your stereo manual. You don't ever sit down and read that, but if you come into a problem, you can flip through it for reference and say, on question 73 in the strategic plan, what are they looking for? And then it'll give you some tips there. So it has general section information. It also has a very specific question-by-question guide. It also has a frequently asked questions section.
We will make sure that the CLI manual is posted on the wiki, and that it is on the wiki page. I will put in the website address into the chat so that everyone can download it from there. Okay. Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
I think we're good. So here on the strategic plan, it asks if you have a logic model included in your strategic plan. It'll ask if it's been reviewed by the agency responsible. So kind of depending on where we're at, maybe all the answers will be yes by September. I'm not sure. So for today you can write no, and then you can always go back in and change it later on. All right, so we went through the first 4 here. This next one is Prevention, Intervention, Implementation Survey. So this one asks, about if you or your community partners delivered any prevention interventions during this reporting period. For right now, the answer is probably going to be no for most of you, because that comes after your strategic planning. These are the things that you've identified what's going on in your community and the things you want to change, and you've made a plan for how you're going to do it. This is asking you, how did you do it? So for right now, for most of you it's going to be no. So you'll need to select no, next, and then you're at the end of the survey. We will be having another training on how to do these intervention-specific surveys in September. But like we said, we don't want to overwhelm you yet. So even if you have not done anything on these surveys, you still need to click on them and say, no, you didn't. So it'll show that it is complete, so you can submit it later on. Question 163 is the only one that doesn't follow that. Question 163 has its own category, even though it's one question, because this is where you'll go in and you'll enter all of your different things that you are doing to reduce the problem behavior in your community. So it's different for everyone. One community may be implementing 3 things, someone else might be doing 7. So this will never have a complete or incomplete since it's different for each person. So for right now, don't even worry about clicking on that one. Monitoring and evaluation is another one that we're going to get out of today because you guys just aren't at the point yet. So you have not created an evaluation plan for your prevention interventions. 165, it is important to say not applicable because no prevention interventions were implemented during the reporting period. If you just say no, it's going to kick it back. So make a note, be sure to say not applicable on that. And then if you say no, we haven't done any monitoring and evaluation, you will go to the end of the survey. And that brings us to our last one, contextual factors. This is one that everyone will have some answers for. So the first part talks about the community prevention system. They're asking you at a local level, so not like on a statewide level, but just in your community. Does the prevention system have a mission and vision? Do they have documented processes for making substance abuse-related decisions? You'll see also that there is a don't know available, and like I said earlier, for the first reporting period, perhaps you don't know, and you can select that. We always want as much information as you can give, so hopefully if there are some don't knows, the next time you fill this out, you'll be able to put the answer in.
Emily, this does apply to a question that we received. Bev asked, who is the responsible agency, the local health districts or the state DHS? And it is the local health districts. And so when you're answering this, like you said, answer this for the local health districts. In other words, the community or tribal grantee that is receiving the funds from the state. Okay.
All right. And here we talk about contextual factors. So these are conditions in your community that exist outside of prevention interventions, but are still affecting the process. So they want to know like what else might be going on to contribute here. So you just go through and answer what you think is going on, what you've learned from your community needs assessment. And it will be specific to each of your communities. You know, maybe your community has really high poverty rates. There's no resources in a rural area. Maybe there's language barriers to deal with. Okay, and Section 8 asks about what SPF SIG funded activities, guidance and training you guys have had. So this should look pretty much the same for everyone. There's been some cultural competency, definitely the needs and resource assessment, staff, coalition member training, sustainability, strategic plan, intervention, and some evaluation as well. And this is a space where you can provide any additional comments about the SPF SIG that you want the federal cross-site evaluation to know about. So if you feel that there's really something to report that didn't get reported, or if you want to make an explanation of something, this is your place to do it. But remember, it's going to the federal cross-site evaluators. If you have something that is more for your state or that you want the local evaluators like Eric to know, it'd be better to use another venue for that rather than this, because it does go directly to the feds. And so that's the part that we're training over today. Are there questions about this?
Okay, none are coming in, and so if you do have any questions, feel free to call me. Let me just quickly, I have in the chat, I put in Emily's phone number, but I'm going to repeat it out loud. It's 307-760-7036. And also her Emily's email is emily.grant@uwyo.edu. We will also send an email with that contact information along with mine. If you do have any other questions, concerns, and especially as you go through it yourself and you have anything that comes up, we can certainly contact you directly. And anything applies to everyone, we'll send out an email or post something to the wiki.
Oh, and I did remember one last thing that I did want to show. After all of your surveys here say complete, and you finished it, remember 163 is never going to say anything, so you want it to look something just like this. To submit it, you open the CLI Part 1 submission panel, and it's going to ask you to put in your name, your title, phone, and email, check this box, and then push submit. That's when it gets transferred to us to take a look through it. Before you push this submission panel, no one has access to it except for you. And after you hit submit, then you can't make any more changes to it until we send it back to you for revisions if they're needed.
Okay, and Dave Garcia mentions one thing is that if you want to save the chat log and the questions file for the questions and answers from this webinar, it's available through the GoToWebinar pane under File. If you click that, it then has a save chat log and save questions log. So Dave helpfully pointed that out to us. So that has to do with this webinar. All right. Emily, anything else?
I think that's all for now, but I do encourage you to give me a call or send me an email anytime that you have problems with it. I'm more than happy to help.
All right. Thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you. Again, I'm going to repeat what I often say. It's the communities that we hear from that we're not worried about. It's the communities that we don't that we worry about. So please let us know what's going on and keep us in the loop as you fill this out. Thank you. Have a good day.